The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Welcome to the Powerbomb Podcast. Today's episode, we are diving in on the birth of the NWO, as it was 29 years ago to the day that Hulk Hogan was the third man of the New World Order, and a faction that changed wrestling forever. The moment where anything could happen. WCW was having all kinds of problems. Hulk Hogan was kind of running his course with the red and yellow brand. Nash and Hall just came over from WWE. A lot of people didn't know if this was them trying to take over or what was going on and who was going to be the third man at Bash at the Beach. And it turned out to be none other than the yellow and red, the real American Hulkamania. And that's when we got Hollywood Hogan. And that was the biggest heel turn probably in the history of wrestling. A lot of people are talking about now, like, oh, where does Cena compare to the New World Order and Hulk Hogan turning heel? He doesn't compare at all. This John Cena heel turn has been, it's just felt forced. I don't believe anything he says. It's hard for me to believe that a guy that's been preaching hustle, loyalty, and respect for 20 plus years all of a sudden flipped a switch and now he doesn't like anybody and he wants to leave with that championship. But basically, let's get back to Hulk Hogan turning heel. You go back to Bash at the Beach 96. Kevin Nash just delivers a low blow to Randy Savage. You hear Dusty Rhodes being like, oh, here comes Hulkster. Go get him, Hulkster. And then you hear Bobby Heenan being like, is he the third man? You know, and you kind of like, it's kind of the seeds planted. Hogan gets in the ring. Nash and Hall completely clear out. And then Hogan's in there, and you don't know what's going to happen. Savage is on the ground, and then, boom, it happens. He drops the leg on Savage. The whole place is stunned. Nobody knows what's going on. He drops another leg drop. Then Nash and Hall get in the ring. They high-five each other. It's a great moment for the NWO. It's an absolute game-changing moment in wrestling. And in a way, it's almost WCW's jump the shark moment. Because Hogan was running his course with the red and yellow, and they needed something new. And Hogan definitely needed something new. A lot of the fans of Hogan were starting to get older, and they were starting to get bored with the whole take your vitamins, say your prayers, that whole gimmick. So for Hogan to completely do a 180 and become a heel was a really crazy thing to do for WCW. It was a gamble. Was this going to work? Was it not going to work? But they did have avenues to go with for Hogan to feud. Like, one of Hogan's biggest feuds with the NWO was Roddy Piper. I thought that was a great feud. The biggest one, though, and because of the NWO, a couple other wrestlers were starting to wonder if their gimmick kind of ran its course too, and none other than Sting. You had Sting ditch his colored face paint. You know, he used to have like bright colored face paint, and he had the blonde hair and everything, and he ditched it, and he had to figure out what he was going to do. And he had the famous quote, the one thing about Sting is nothing's for sure. So he cuts out the surfer gimmick. And then at the time, one of the best movies ever created was The Crow. And Sting kind of became that Eric Draven Crow character. He had the white face paint and the black eyeliner and the black marker and everything. And he had a vulture. He would stand up in the rafters and he would kind of stalk the NWO. and he would stalk Nash and Hall. But he would also stalk WCW wrestlers too, because he wasn't in it for WCW and he wasn't in it for the NWO. He's kind of in it for himself. And that whole gimmick, that whole story went a whole year. What's Sting gonna do? What's Sting gonna do? What's Sting gonna do? And I remember something. Sting did not speak a word for the whole year. He didn't speak a word the whole year. And then Starrcade 97 happens. What a travesty that match was. We were finally going to get the big payoff. The title was going to go on Sting. It was going to be a great moment. And the ultimate Mr. Creative Control, Hollywood Hogan, is like, is he the guy? Is Sting the guy? Are you kidding me, Hogan? You had this build for a full year, and now you're wondering if he's the guy? The day of the show? How are we not going to put Sting over? You built him up for a year, and you don't want to put the title, and it was an absolute mess. It was an absolute mess. Hogan won. They said it was a fast count, but it was just a regular 1, 2, 3, nothing crazy. At the time, Bret Hart came over from WWE, so he got involved in this, saying like that was a fast count, and then somehow Bret got involved. This was an absolute disaster. If you're a pro wrestling fan and you remember 1997 Starrcade, the build for that was amazing. The match itself was just an absolute letdown. And probably one of the first real nails in the WCW coffin was that finish, because that could have really built Sting to another level, but the way it went down was it just left a bad taste in the mouths of wrestling fans. I remember watching it live. I ordered it on pay-per-view with my buddies, and I'm a Bret Hart fan, so when they saw Bret get involved, they're all looking at me being like, your boy better not screw anything up tonight. And then the whole Sting-Hogan match happened, and it was an absolute farce. It was a farce, and I really feel like that finish really halted WCW. And another thing the NWO did when it came out was it forced Vince's hand. If you remember, 1996, Shawn Michaels was the champion, and WWF was it was okay. Like, Bret took a vacation. Shawn was kind of running the backstage, and he had all the power and everything, and WWF was very cartoonish, with Undertaker and Mankind and Goldust and all these guys, and Shawn's on every drug known to man. And then, but yeah, the NWO, it was a big game changer. Austin 316 moment. The NWO starting. The NWO giving birth to DX, because Vince was like, hey, we're getting our ass beat in the ratings. We have to do something. So DX was born. And then out of DX and then the whole screw job happened with Bret. So Vince McMahon became a bad guy. He actually believed he was the good guy in the situation, and the fans were not buying it, and that's when he changed to the Mr. McMahon character. So between the Mr. McMahon character and Austin and DX, that was kind of the end for WCW, because WCW's creative was not very good. The NWO thing was probably their best creative thing they've done. The Sting thing was a very good creative thing too, but it just never stuck. It never stuck. But with the NWO becoming as big as it was, and that's another problem with the NWO, too many people joined this faction. Too many people. Like, you could have had a good feud with, like, Hogan and Savage, but Savage ended up joining the NWO. And Miss Elizabeth joined the NWO. Buff Bagwell joined the NWO. Sean Waltman, 1-2-3 Kid, X-Pac, he became 6. He joined the NWO. There were just so many people that joined the NWO, but at one point, it just wasn't good enough anymore. And then you had spin-offs, like the NWO Wolfpack with Nash and Sting and Luger. Okay. And then you still had the old NWO. So you had the NWO Wolfpack, you had the NWO, and then you had Team WCW. You're spreading yourself too thin at that point. So, I mean, NWO was a great moment. Don't get me wrong. It was amazing. And one thing, if you go back and watch that highlight, is fans are throwing stuff at Hogan. That's what we're missing now. There's no real heel in wrestling that you just wake up and you're like, oh, God, I don't like him. Like, you think a heel's like MJF. Is he really a heel, or are we just entertained by what he says? And then there's Seth Rollins, who's trying to be a heel, but every 5 seconds is trying to get a pop from the crowd. And then there's, I think the closest heel we have to actually being a heel that you don't like would have to be Drew McIntyre. I think there's something we can do with Drew McIntyre going forward. But anyways, this is about the NWO and how it completely changed wrestling forever. I mean, I'll never forget that day. It was a great moment. Hogan absolutely needed it. All right. This was the Powerbomb. I'm JP. Please like and follow. Comment. Tell me where you were when you saw the great NWO faction created at Bash at the Beach. I know I was at home watching it on my couch. All right. Have a great day.